Corsair, our non-stimulant, thermogenic, and recomposition agent. Corsair is a super cool product because it's going to help you utilize turning your white adipose tissue, which is for storage of fat, into brown adipose tissue, which is going to help with energy production. So this is great to use for a competition prep or in your weight loss phase. So you can stack it with a stimulant-based thermogenic, or you could also use it in your off-season or muscle building phase to help keep you lean and mean. Corsair.
Here we are, guys. We're ready to hit the ground running or not running if you're hurt. That's what we're talking about today. Not obviously, but we are joined today. So it's Girls' Day on the podcast. You've got myself, Christina, and then Coach Jess is here with us. And then we have a special guest. We have Coach Steph, which it's been a little while, but not like forever since you were on the podcast, right?
It's been a hot minute. I would say probably almost a year, maybe.
Wow. Okay. So we got to make sure that doesn't happen.
I don't even know what day it is.
I only know that it's Wednesday because we're recording this.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is your schedule. Like the last 2 weeks, I've kind of lost all track of days with the traveling and stuff.
Hey, you've been on vacation.
Yes, it was nice.
Good.
Oh yeah. Did you went to Command the Stage though, right?
Yeah, I went to Command the Stage and then I rented a car and drove to Naples.
Ooh, I love it. We're kind of doing something similar with like when we go to Florida for cheer stuff, we let that just be like the beginning. And then we're like, okay, now the actual fun can start. And then we head off to Disney. And so this time we're actually going to stay at Disney the whole way through for like a week. So I'm going to get my fill and I'll probably be over it for maybe 6 weeks.
I was going to be like for not very long.
Not for very long until I crave a churro again. Although Disney World, not great for churros, I've learned. Apparently that's a Disneyland thing because they weren't very good at Disney World. But now some Disney World zealot is going to pop out and tell me I'm all wrong. So today we are going to talk about I feel like it's going to explode into rest in general to some sort of degree. But the big thing we wanted to focus on was basically how to navigate like injuries. If it's something small and you can find a way around it, or maybe we need to take a complete break and it's something where truly we need to give your body that time. We can't push it. How do we figure those out? What do we do with our calories? Where your headspace might go with stuff, just kind of all of that when we're put into a situation where we just don't like it and we got to figure out how to move forward. And so I thought about this one because my husband has reminded me that apparently I do this every marathon prep, but I broke my stupid toe this week and it's bad enough that I can't run on it. Well, I'm tempted to try again today, but I let it be broken for like exactly 24 hours and then put on my running shoes and was like, let's fucking go. I birthed 4 children without medication. I can do it. And then I ran almost half a mile and could feel the pain, like the burn, like building. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm breaking it more and more as I do this. And
it's very black and blue.
It's real black.
How did you break it? Did you trip or?
Well, cardio is forever going to be the death of me, apparently, because I took approximately 1.5 steps out of my bed at 4:45 in the morning, and I swung my foot directly into the base of my Peloton and kicked my Peloton barefoot. And Vic was still asleep. So I just like slowly crumpled to the floor next to it. And you know
what? Oh my God. I did that. I smashed my foot, I want to say like 4 weeks ago or something like that, into a door frame. And I did the same thing. Bob was in bed and it was in the bathroom and I like curled into a ball.
Please don't die. Please don't die. Because that's what it feels like. I think it's the worst thing ever. And so when I first looked at it, it wasn't bad. And for some reason, I thought within like 3 minutes, it was going to be broken, bruised. Right. And so I was like, it's fine. And like tried to go about my day. And then that night was when I finally looked at it. And Vic was like, it's not broken. And I was like, I don't think it's supposed to be that color. And he's like, well, there's nothing you can do about a broken toe. So why don't we just say it's not broken? And I was like, love it. I'm going to run 6 miles. Then I couldn't. And then I got home last night and the bruising spread down my foot and underneath. So it's fucked. It feels better today. I am going to try and run tomorrow, but I was going to share my plan for what to do when you're not in this situation. Because I had 3 different people message me when I shared the terrible video of my toe. And they were like, oh, so no marathon this year. And I was like, that's 10 weeks away. What do you mean? I'll crawl it if I have to. And so there is this, you know, hurdle that I think a lot of people come up against and then have no idea what to do when shit just goes wrong and it's no longer the perfect plan. You can't execute the way you want to and things like that. And so, you know, nothing makes me happier when I'm at the gym than to see somebody like rolling around on their little scooter. Like I've got someone at my gym right now that's on the little, like my knee is busted scooter where it's just the one side. And then there's a woman who's in like a full on, she must have had a shoulder repair because it's that sling where your arm is like a million inches out from your body. She comes in and lifts with one side of her body and like things. So there's ways that we could work around this. And I think the general attitude too often is maybe next year. And then we just don't do it. And so what would you guys do if you had someone broke their toe and now they have to get through life? What are you going to tell them?
As their coach or as if it happened to me?
Both, because sometimes they're different, right? Like realistically, am I going to tell my clients, you should probably go try to run 6 miles on that broken toe. Let's see how it goes. No, I would never tell them to do that. But sometimes we make poor decisions.
Yeah. Well, with a broken bone, first I'm gonna, tell them to probably follow the advice of their doctor. But, there's with a broken toe, you've still got 2 limbs up top on your arms and other things that you can do if you're not refrained from walking. You can still walk and you don't have to cut your calories. So it's just being patient it's more mentally hard.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about the mental stuff because I think the mental thing for me is like the very first thing that I address with a client. Well, first of all, I'm like, what is the injury? Because I've had clients with like a thumb situation where I changed a bunch of their upper body. They could push, but they couldn't pull. So I changed a bunch of their upper body stuff to cuff things and they attached a cuff around their elbow. Me, when I smashed my foot into the floor, you can still if you can walk on your foot without pain, you can do the majority of stuff safely. I might say to a client, instead of barbell back squats, let's do Smith machine squats or like hack squats, something that's going to have a little bit more of like a safety factor.
Or leg press.
Or leg press, right? Like something that's going to have more safety than like, hey, I'm just going to continue to wing it with a bar on my back while I have an injured foot. I have a competitor specifically who her low back has completely like seized up. So any kind of hinging movement, for her have had to stop completely while she undergoes certain treatment, but we can still do stuff like upper body. But the fact of the matter is, whether you're a competitor or whether you're a lifestyle person or somebody who's just trying to improve their health and fitness, this can really mentally take a toll on you and you feeling like you are stuck, right? Like you feel like you can't progress. The fact of the matter is you can. It just looks different, but it's really hard to go through that, especially if you're just starting out on a health and fitness journey. I don't even want to say especially as blah, 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 because like me as a competitor, if I was told that I couldn't deadlift for like 4 weeks because of an injury or whatever,
Right.
I'd be like, oh my God, I can't deadlift. Like, what am I going to do? And you feel lost.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned kind of at first time, we've had the challenge that just recently started. And if people are newer to fitness, I think also learning that difference between pain and muscle soreness too. A lot of times if they get that muscle soreness, they're like, okay, I need to take 2 or 3 days off, or maybe they just go too hard and it causes an injury. It's learning some of the basics if you're first time, getting into fitness and everything. But injuries can happen a lot in the beginning. And then there's that frustration of, oh, I just started a diet. I just started working out, and now it's a huge setback. So yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm a little neurotic about my sleep. And we all know in order to feel our best, build muscle, lose body fat, sleep is a big part of it. When I started incorporating cured nightcaps as part of my wind down routine, it truly changed the game in terms of having a good night's quality sleep and waking up feeling refreshed. The thing that makes the nightcap stand out isn't the already properly dosed CBD to help with general aches, discomfort, and mood, but it's the added CBN that takes this product to the next level. CBN supports your body's natural sleep rhythms throughout the night for deep restorative sleep that leaves you feeling ready to take on anything the next day. No grogginess or harsh side effects. I like to take these nightcaps with me when I'm traveling or if I'm experiencing higher stress than normal. Pairing the nightcaps with either Zen or a few drops of one of their CBD oils really hits the spot. Making sure to check out all of Cured's amazing products online. Use the code, all one word, for a discount at checkout.
And even just getting through an injury for the first time, it's one of those things where you can look back on it, and it's easy to get caught up in the feeling of like, oh, it just feels like there's always something. Because I mean, I can look back on the last like probably 5 years and pick something for each one of those years where it's like, oh, that was the one where I threw my back out. That was the one where it was the weird hip thing or like whatever. And there's always something that we're kind of working around. And I think that's just the nature of asking more of your body, right? Like the goal is that we're stronger and we're working on mobility and we're working on overall increased capability, but we're also taking this machine and we're making sure ours are road tested. Like we're putting it through the work. And so you're going to come up with stuff. And I don't like, so in the challenge, like you had mentioned, I have front squats on one of the workout plans, I think. And somebody had brought up where they were like, should I just take the next week off so that where it hurts my collarbone doesn't hurt anymore? And I was like, it's going to keep hurting your collarbone. Like, that's not something like, they were like, well, how do you build up the muscle or something? And I was like, no, you just kind of have to build up getting used to it, and like you're gonna like it someday. You get used
That's
to
like when clients will send me a barbell back squat video and they have the hip thrust pad on the bar. And I'm like, immediately remove that.
Yes.
Immediately. It causes instability. You need to use your traps and your back to support that bar. And sometimes when you lift weights, you're going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
We're same with hands, like calluses.
Yeah.
Ripping and things like that. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm going to tell somebody, like, it kind of comes with the territory. It's like blisters with new running shoes and things like that. And the only way we're going to get past it is to build calluses or to get used to the feeling and stuff. Now, when we get into like injury territory, where maybe it's something where we're risking like an overuse injury, those can be difficult to really nail down. But I think that a lot of the times, especially if we're newer, because overuse injuries get brought up a lot and things like that, I've definitely had people where we're like 2 weeks into working together and they're like, well, I think I need to stop doing this one thing because I've developed an overuse injury in my ankle or something from the elliptical that we're doing. And I'm like, no, like, I don't think we have. And then so like we have to dig into it a little bit deeper. If somebody brings up stuff, just like Steph said, the first thing I'm going to do is be like, go to your doctor. Like I have no clue. I'm just going off of your perception of the pain. Maybe you have a really high tolerance and the little thing, it's huge. Or maybe it's the other way around and I can't assess it. So I'd always say go if you don't quite understand the stuff. But the good thing is, like, I know this toe thing is super annoying, but if I just let it do its thing for like a couple of days, I'm going to be able to get back to normal. All of the other injuries I've gone through where I'm like, this is the end of me. I'll never be able to run again or lift again or whatever it was. It got better. and I figured other stuff out. And so the real skill there is paying attention, like being able to actually pay attention and do what your body's saying, but to learn to pivot. And so for me, my Peloton must have been feeling left out because it's the one that has ruined me. And so now I have to use it and pay attention to it again because I've been running instead. And so that's a really easy swap, right? Like I'm training for a race, so I want to run because that's what I'll be doing. But this week I had 3 1-hour runs, and then I had a 13 miler scheduled for this weekend. So I'm just going to pivot 2 of those steady state runs into a steady state ride. I know where my heart rate is for my run. I'll get my heart rate to the same place. I'm going to do an interval training workout instead of my run interval. Same thing. I'll just make sure I feel like I'm going to die at the end. And then I'll just pedal for 2.5 hours. Like I know how long 13 miles will take me. So I can get my heart rate there. My legs are even still getting the same stimulus. Is it perfect? No, but I still got something done, and the shoes are going to allow the weight to get distributed and stuff like that. Like Jess mentioned, I could not run yesterday, but I was able to back squat without pain at like a high percentage, and deadlift and lunges were the only thing where I was like, I'm not stupid enough to try that. That's going to hurt. And so
Yeah.
you can find stuff, but it has to be important enough to you to where that setback doesn't become the thing where you're like, oh, thank God I didn't want to do this anyways. And then you like walk away from it because now it seems like you've got an easy out.
Honestly, the fact of the matter is, I feel people just immediately go to the worst case scenario and like, that's oh my God, pivoting is going to be hard. So I'm just not going to do anything. And the fact of the matter is doing nothing is actually probably worse because you're going to either feel like you have to start all over again, or you're going to live in your choices of not looking after your body. So I like what you said, Christina, about pivoting. And if you're working with an online coach, like the communication process is super vital to us. So go and talk to somebody who is in person. I direct my clients and I help them by telling them to ask their doctor questions or ask their PT or whoever they're seeing, right? What can you do? What should you not do? What should you avoid for now? Do they give you exercises that you can do? Like in mobility or in their warm-up? Let's put that as part of your warm-up now, right? Like, what are you able to do? What can you not do? What do you need to avoid? And then are there any swaps or anything that's going to be kind of the same but different? So like Christina's running versus Peloton, my clients, like lat pull downs with the neutral grip bar, she couldn't grip onto it. So we're doing single arm, like cuff above the elbow pull downs. And you can pivot. You're also going to be able, like, I don't think I can stress this fact enough. You will still make progress because people also think that you're just not going to. And I know I already said that, but please listen to my words again, because you can still make progress. It's not optimal, but what's optimal is not always realistic. And when we're navigating an injury, you need to be very realistic with what you can and can't do and just work with what you can. And then ease into it, right? Like my client with the back injury, I actually saw her at Command the Stage and she's like, I'm going to train. And I looked at her and I was like, pardon? And she's like, I'm doing upper body. And I was like, okay, but let's be chill about it. You need to message me about that. You need to tell me how it's going, right? And so like, again, communication and then just trying and dabbling and being safe and smart about it. You will see progress. And we're probably going to end up talking about nutrition eventually, but like nutrition has probably like 98% of what you can be doing at this time if you are unable to train at all. But the majority of times people can train or like do something of substance. So you need to figure out how to pivot. If you have a coach, talk to them about it. The world is not over. And our job is to be here for you to make those changes. I feel like clients, if they hurt themselves or like if they're supposed to have injuries. I had one client, or surgeries. One client was like, I have to have surgery. Should we go on hold? And I was like, why?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
you could, I understand. Okay, I'll transition you to nutrition only for like, well, she thought it was going to be 2 weeks. And I was like, girl, 6 to 8. And now it's on like 6. And she's like, oh my God, how did I think that I was going to be back? I was
Right.
like, no, we're just going to work on all of the other shit and not training.
Yeah. But you can also provide suggestions on mobility moves. Ask if she's following the physical therapy. You know, all of those things too are helpful.
Yeah, and I think sometimes like because people forget that like when we're talking about our bodies, what we're capable of, our nutrition, what we want our body to look like instead, like whatever it is, these are all like hugely intimate, like tied to like how we view ourselves as people kind of things. And so then if somebody comes up and, or not someone, but like the boogeyman comes up and says, you're injured now, and you have to deal with it. And then it feels, especially like for people who are like super deep into this lifestyle, it's like, that's a piece of me being taken away. If you say, like, if somebody told me I couldn't do anything for 8 weeks, I would definitely have at least a 24-hour, like full meltdown and then have to figure out how to move on. But I would be devastated. And, you know, you just have to, you have to be open to figuring out like, how do I figure this out and not let it completely crush you? Because like Jess had said a little bit ago, where it can be a really easy like switch in the brain to be like, well, if I have to go through this, I guess I might as well just sit on the couch and watch all the shows and eat all that candy I've been wanting to have, because I'm not going to make progress anyways. And so we either end up super over, because now we're in fuck it mode. We've decided I'm completely not in control of this situation. And so I don't want any of the control, and we just let it go. Or, and they never say it beforehand, they'll do it and then tell me after like 6 days in a check-in, like, oh, hey, by the way, I'm hurt. So I stopped eating because obviously my body doesn't need food because I'm not working out. And
Or I've just stopped tracking.
Oh, yes. Yes. And then I'll be like, okay, you stop tracking because you're stressed out and you have a lot on your mind. And this is the last thing you want to deal with because nothing feels fair. But like, for the love of God, please go back to tracking. Because that's when it's really easy to just be shoving stuff into our faces we're not even thinking about. And I mean, that one doesn't concern me as much. Honestly, I'd rather have them go eat more than they're supposed to in that situation, because it's going to be a natural shakeup and they'll get back together. Like, what concerns me more is if somebody's immediate response is to cut calories, then we've got 2 things we need to work on. One, getting your body far more resilient to the decrease in activity so it doesn't throw a shit fit. And then now we're gaining weight because we're not moving, because your body shouldn't freak out that much. Like it'd be okay. But then also now we have to deal with the mental side of things, where we think that we don't deserve a normal amount of food unless we're putting in high levels. And we all know who this person ends up being, right? Like, well, first of all, me, well, I don't cut calories, but because I like food too much, but like the person who will do too much, who's very type A, who's very tied to stuff, as soon as somebody like that ends up with like a tiny injury, it's like, here it comes. Because, you know, like a lot of these things are all tied together. And so it's almost like a blessing if it happens early on, because then we can start working on like those food behaviors and like things. But yeah, so Jess, how do you dive into that situation if they're like, I'm going to cut calories?
No.
Right.
And like, okay, simply put, no. Is your activity less? Yes. So let's monitor that, but we don't need to go black or white right away. The majority of my clients either have like training days or rest day macros. Some of them have all the same macros, whatever. It's a rest day. We're hitting our rest day macros, and that's it. We don't need to overthink it. You don't need to overstress. I also like stress to my clients that your body is needing nutrients. Like your body requires these things in order to recover. Same thing when you're sick, which we've talked about on here before. So when I'm looking at a client's food intake, I'm looking at, all right, we need to make sure we're having enough protein and a good amount of it, because PS, you're not going to lose muscle. Like there are research studies that show you can literally do nothing. You sit as a bump on a log in bed doing nothing for like 2 to 3 weeks before you start to lose muscle. So you're not going to lose muscle. Make sure you're having adequate protein. Good, you're covered. And then eat and focus on nutrients and satiety stuff. Like maybe I might bump up a client's like fats or protein slightly to help with satiety, because maybe they're really hungry, or maybe they're not, right? And so I monitor that, but you need to eat. And so we don't cut calories, unless for some reason your body weight starts shooting up, which would literally make no sense. Just put that out there. It is probably unrelated to the injury. You might have like some inflammation from an injury, that makes sense, but like keep things stable. Why would we make things more unstable for your body during a unstable time? Make things as consistent as possible.
Yeah. Well, and an injury, I tell my clients this a lot. So if any of my clients are listening, they probably know, oh yeah, that's staff talking. An injury is not something that we have control over. There's always going to be things that we don't have control over, but we definitely have control over how we react, what we put into our bodies. So focusing on what we can do versus what we can't do. And, a lot of clients get real excited about being able to work out, and they got all their workouts in, but their nutrition is just off. Okay, so now you've got this extra time to rest. Take that time to really hone in on planning out your day instead of just winging it and playing that macro Tetris puzzle at the end of the day. Think about some meals that you can put together. Think about more whole foods. What are some, if you're not tied to the bed or the couch, take some of the time that you'd be running, working out, whatever it is, and put together some meals that you can put in the freezer, or, make the most of it. You can only focus on really what you can do. Because I saw a quote the other day, I think it was an Abraham Lincoln one, but if we always focus on the bad, it overshadows all of the good.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I think it's an exercise in like grit and mindset, like to be in a situation like that, where it's like, do we let it crush us and focus on how everything's wrong? Or is this when we tell the world like, oh, like, you can't stop me, like I will figure it out? And I think getting to that place where you truly have the confidence in yourself that you're the kind of person who's like, like I will just figure it out, it bleeds over into so much more. So if we can make sure that something like that, because you can't call into your job with like a broken toe and just be like, no, they'd be like, well, you could use your computer, you can answer phone calls, you would figure out a way. And in these situations, like, I mean, 9.9 times out of 10, we're talking to people who are just a little bit crazy like us, right? And they want to get to the places that require, putting in, like, this is the only thing you do levels of effort almost, like when people point to competitors and they're like, well, I just want to look like that year round. I don't want to compete, but I want to look like I could or something. And it's like,
right.
That is a body that doesn't care at all what's happening to it to make things inconvenient. Everything about that lifestyle is inconvenient. And so you have to do whatever you can to make it happen. And it sounds simple, but I mean, really, it just comes down to not letting it crush you and then being smart about your recovery with it. And it's really as simple as that. And if things are skyrocketing, there's a piece of the puzzle that we are not managing as tightly as we say that we are, because it shouldn't be. And that sucks, right? When you get a check-in and you're like looking at all of the information because you want to try and figure it out. You're racking your brain on like, what's the weird thing I'm not thinking about? And then sometimes it's just that maybe we're not being as diligent, or maybe we are tied to the bed. Like you mentioned, they're not moving anywhere. And so then we're having to have takeout for a lot of the foods, and maybe we're hitting our numbers, but it's takeout. And so now our sodium's super high and we're not moving. So we're not flushing it as well. And so that's where the quality of your nutrition is the biggest one. And I'll tell clients, even if they're like the ones that are hesitant about getting in like their normal amount of calories, I'll be like, okay, fine. We're going to get our normal protein in. And then I want you to be like a fruit bowl with how much you're getting in. Like we are eating all of the fruit, all of the vegetables, getting all of the high quality stuff in, because for some reason it can be easier to understand that we have to repair muscle after we tear it down in the gym. But then the idea of like a major soft tissue injury or a surgery or something, it's like, oh, my body will figure it out. It doesn't even need tools for that, but it needs the materials to go in and do the work. You wouldn't drop off a crew of construction workers at an empty field and be like, I'm not going to bring you anything. I'd like a skyscraper. Like that's what you're asking them to do. And so you have to provide the materials for that repair to happen. And it can be scary, but it's another one of those things where unless you have decided to quadruple your calories, or you went from like Michael Phelps level of activity to doing absolutely nothing, the world, it will not end. It will not end. And if you hold more water, we're storing glycogen. We're setting ourselves up for a fantastic lift when we can. And again, it's temporary. Like you're still not going to pack on body fat like crazy. And it's not gonna, it's scary. It's frustrating. Nobody likes it, but it's never as serious as we think it is.
And, there are some of those long injuries or life-changing injuries. I've been through both myself, and I will tell you, when I had to have knee surgery, this was probably 25, 30 years ago. It was when I had a marathon planned and I was out 6 weeks. The one thing that got me through and able to run before what the doctors had originally thought that they were going to release me was following through with my physical therapy. I don't remember what my nutrition was way back then. It was, but I've also had the life-changing injury. And, you mentioned if it happened to you, you would, be upset for 24 hours. I probably lasted about 3 weeks with that. I mean, it's a mental thing. It really can change you, but it's realizing that, you're either going to stay like this. And I will tell you, when it comes to nutrition, with my life-changing one, I couldn't eat. I had to have kind of a tube. I lost, because I was out 18 weeks. Yes, I lost a lot of weight, but I lost a lot of muscle in that 18 weeks, mainly because I'm a kind of a shorter person. And so just a few pounds of muscle like loss was hard, but I built it all back up
I
and
was gonna
some.
say, but you're here.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
And like if you haven't heard Steph's story, I swear to God, it's on the podcast somewhere.
yeah,
Like,
we don't need to, but it's,
no, but it's like it hurts my heart. But then it's like, but you're here.
yeah. And I'm not going to say that that all of it has been easy, but consistency with things, keeping my calorie, when I wanted to build that muscle back up, I had to bring my calories back up. And, I was in that 300 plus carb group for a long time and I loved it. And now I can eat close to that, but it's still taken me a while for my body to respond and get to where I want it to be. That doesn't mean that I haven't had injuries since then. I've had a shoulder injury that I couldn't do this shoulder, but like Christina said, I still had the other arm. This side may have gotten a little bit weaker in that few weeks that I had to, it didn't progress like the other one, but you still get through.
People, I feel like, really discredit hydration, sleep. And I understand when you have an injury, sometimes you have to sleep weirdly, or like when I had my breast augmentation surgery, like I couldn't sleep in certain ways for a while, right? Like sleeping can be hard when you have an injury or you're post-surgery. but even just rest, and then that mindset work, right? Because like if you're out for, what did you say, Steph, 18 weeks?
Yeah,
Yeah, like
that
that's
was the
a
last,
fucking long time.
it was a long time. And,
Like,
most injuries don't last that long, but
so I want to know,
Mhm.
said that you were kind of like in a dark place for like 3 weeks. What helped you get out of it? What was it? Or what, it probably wasn't even a thing, but like how are you here? How did you make it?
Journaling.
Love it. Because
I
I
know
was
that
going to
sounds
talk
weird.
about journaling.
And it wasn't even like I would, dear diary, today all of this happened. I would just make little notes. I did a lot of puzzles. I did a lot of reading. Um, and after that 3 weeks, it was like, okay, what can I do? Because we know I'm not going to be able to run again. What can I do? And that's actually how I found Danny and hired her as my coach. Um, the nutrition was the harder part of it. I've been active my whole life, and the nutrition is the harder part of it, understanding it and knowing what to do. But I wanted to say real quick, I have a client who, I'm not give her name, but she just recently had a surgery that had her out for 6 weeks. We, helped with her nutrition. She did really good. We did bring things down a little bit, but not a whole lot, but everything was pretty high at that point. Her check-in, it was either yesterday or today. She is back to lifting what she was before surgery with her lower body. Cause I want to say it was a knee surgery. I can't think off the top of my head, but she started with just walking, and the walking hurt. She kept up with that, and now she's up to walking 30 to 40 minutes a day. She's lifting. She started out with just body weight, and now she's already back. And it's only been right at 6-7 weeks, I think. But she's one of the few that just really put in the time, the effort. But journaling doesn't just help when you have an injury. It helps to look back, just, okay, this was going really well here. Why?
Yeah.
I
mean, that's one of the reasons I love having so much weird information from all of the tracking for so many years, is that you can go back and find like what you need for almost anything and have that comparison with stuff. But I mean, I think the big part of it is you got through everything you did and like the big transition with stuff, because I don't think anybody could ever look at you and guess that you used to focus on endurance running, because you don't have a body that looks like that's been a big thing for you. And then
No, Steph is jacked, everyone. Like,
she's
PS.
so jacked. When I
She's
found out
fucking
that you used to be like, I was so pissed because I was like, but what? She's huge, like in all the best ways. And why? Well, I'm like Gumby over here because I run.
I am built kind of like a sprinter. I didn't have that, but yeah, I did have more of a runner's body than any kind of definition.
It's awesome. And it's just that the world was not going to keep you down. Like, you were not going to let that happen to you and then say, well, Steph doesn't do fun stuff anymore. But like, I have to be a new person. And especially catastrophic stuff like that, I mean, that's life-changing. That's digging into like a lot of stuff. But I think that just goes to show who you are, that like, no matter what, whether it was going to be using the parts of your body that you could, like when you could, or if it was just, okay, well, now it's time that I flex like the mental side of things. I work on the mental health, make sure I'm in a good place. And there's a ton of stuff out there. Jess, I think, did you post something recently? Maybe it wasn't recent, talking about like how, workouts and our fitness and things like that shouldn't be, when people say like, oh, it's my therapy, like that shouldn't be the only thing that we're doing for our mental health. Because is it a nice opportunity to work through things and think and like slow down? Like, yeah, it can be great, but it doesn't do the same thing that having, somebody else listen to what you're saying and be like, no, crazy pants, that's not where your head should be going. Like, we still want to work with people on that stuff. And we don't always want to wait until we're forced into it. because now we're in this state of stress where we feel out of control. We don't know what's going on with our lives, and we're trying to learn this new skill. And so that's why, like, I love the idea of people just doing these things as like preventative care, right? So that when I do get into this situation, I'm mentally resilient as well and have all of those tools, because that's what's going to keep you going, so that a year from now, if people are getting back to lifting those same weights, or they're feeling good, maybe even just getting the confidence to get back into it, because some people get hurt doing some things and it's like, well, now they're never going to feel comfortable like getting into that specific situation or like whatever it is. And so, I mean, the mental side cannot be overestimated.
But that's
Yeah.
why so many people around COVID, like when COVID happened, gym shut down. Like, let's think about 4 years ago, literally, basically to right now, when shit went down. That's why so many people had issues. And like, okay, I was one of those people who flippin' lost their shit and went and bought a barbell and like somehow like fought people to get a fucking squat rack in her basement in Canada. Like, I did that. But like, I had three surgeries in the last year, and each surgery I was out of the gym for 4 to 6 weeks.
Only one was planned, right?
Only one was planned.
Yeah, the other two got thrown on you. And so like, it's one thing when we plan to get our boobs done, and it's another when then we have to deal with a whole bunch of other shit.
Yeah. And like, people were like, "Oh my God, how are you dealing?" And I don't know. I went into this like chill, calm mode, because the fact of the matter was I could either, I don't know, do what the opposite of what my doctor said and then probably hurt myself and like mess things up even more, or I could just relax. And I understand that it's really hard for people to be good at relaxing, because that is me. Like, that is always going to be me. I struggle, right? Like, and yeah, like I am a recovering, do all of the things addict. Like, even when I go to Mexico, Bob and I in a little bit of weeks, all we do is sit by the pool. But I'm still like, I want to go for a walk on the beach. Like, I still do those things because I'm just like antsy like that. But when I was going through surgery or like recovery, or if you're going through an injury or whatever it is, you have to be okay with rest, and you have to figure out how your brain can be okay with rest. Because a lot of people have this issue with, if they're not doing something, they feel like they're not productive, and then they feel like they are less than whatever. And rest can be productive. Like, in that situation, when I was out of the gym, I wasn't training, rest was productivity. Like, I had to do that. But then you also have to work with your brain. So like Steph's been saying, she said, journaling, puzzles, reading, whether it's Akatar, like Christina and I are obsessed with. Steph, are you on the train?
What is it called?
Oh my God. Okay, we can't even have this conversation. We're gonna have this conversation later.
Girl, I got you. I have they're all over my house. I'm telling you.
Oh my God.
If you're injured right now, the best thing you can do for yourself is go start this trashy fairy porn I'm reading. The worst part is
I've read much smuttier.
Oh, no, for sure. You want to know my biggest problem with Sarah Maas? I generally have to wait like 500 pages of just wanting them to touch each other. And then finally it'll happen. And I'm like, that's what you're going to give me? I have to wait another 200 pages before she quivers.
Dude, I'm so glad that you said this. We can have this conversation offline, because I'm like, yo, there is not enough smut in this series. Anyways, but maybe you like your smut. That's cool. I love that.
Reading, and also maybe looking at their nutrition and maybe trying to be more diligent with that
trying
too.
to be a good coach over here, and we're
I know.
I'm talking about smutty fairy books.
I did read 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah,
I did read that whole series.
If you haven't read that, you probably should.
Okay, I'm gonna send some like. Oh, anyways, okay. we're reading. We're reading. We can read. We can read fiction or nonfiction. I've actually given like clients who are going through certain things. I have a Amazon list for clients, and like I have various books on there. I've done my fair share of like nonfiction reading. So maybe you're doing like some self inner work. But coming at it, like when I couldn't train, coming at things from a place of gratitude, like, okay, my body can do this. I am feeling this way today in a positive way, right? Like what I always try to encourage my clients to come at things from a place of abundance, because then you're going to focus more on joy and focus more on I can and I will. And then it's like that personal grit, like I can overcome, etc., rather than the things that are holding you back. Because once you get into that negative spiral, it's a negative spiral. You can continue to get down there. So that's why having some of those tangible things that you can do, maybe you can walk. Like in some of my injuries, I could walk. I was very walking can also be too much.
Yeah.
Like too much walking is a thing as well. But it's just, yeah, like shifting things to a place of gratitude and a place of
And more
abundance.
positive. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I
I
mean,
would say, oh,
go
sorry.
ahead. No. Go ahead, Steph.
Well, I was going to say one of the worst things for some people to do is be on social media during that time, because if you are a weightlifter or a competitor and you're injured, but that's what you typically look for on your social media, that's going to come on your feed, and that can be a negative, put a lot of negative thoughts in your head. So I know a lot of people are kind of getting away from social media, but that's one of the like worst things you can do when you're down.
If you feel like it affects you, like it could be actually the opposite, right? Like if you're like,
True.
ooh, this is exciting for when I can do that again. And like, if it's almost like people who compete, but they're in off season, and they look at people who are competing and they go, that's exciting. I can't wait to compete, but I'm very happy with where I am at. Then that can be a very positive thing, but you can very quickly look at it as a negative thing and go, oh, I wish I was there. I wish that I was shredded. I wish da 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 da, instead of being like, hey, I am where I'm at. I can eat all this food. I can go and have flexible meals. I don't give a shit about what my sodium count is. I don't know what my cardio is at right now. I'm not even doing cardio. La 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 la. Like if it's, yeah, social media can be a positive thing, but if it's really negatively affecting you, then yeah, you want to make sure that you're kind of like curating that.
Yeah, and they make those like cool features now where you can mute stuff and things like that. I had to tell Danny, she had asked when we were talking about something, and she was like, "Oh, did you see that picture on my stories or something?" And I was so embarrassed because I was like, "No, I had to mute you while you've been building your house because I was jealous and it pissed me off."
But that's because you were doing that.
I think I needed a break from your design choices and sharing how wonderful things are. And it doesn't take away the fact that I'm like overjoyed and immensely happy for like her and her life, but it made me grumpy. And so I just didn't look at it. And I was still happy for her and knowing that all of those things were happening. But it was something where I needed, because my situation was not going to change in that moment. And so I needed to just not torture myself with it. And it wasn't like you don't have to make like a social media exit. Like, hey, Danny, I'm jealous of your life. So I'm going to like, no, I really want your pool. That was what was killing me. I was watching the pool and I was like, I need to stop watching this. But it happens like with the social media thing. And, maybe people like right now is about to be the time of year where everyone's going to jump in to prep for the summer and the national shows, if they're not already in it, and things like that. And then it's like, well, the calendar, where your body is at, where your injuries or like whatever is at, doesn't give a shit about what everyone else is doing. It doesn't change the situation that you're in. And we need to find the good here. And so if you're a competitor, you're in that situation, maybe it's changed something. If you're either getting on a stage or you wanted to run or whatever it is, go be a really fantastic show mom. Go show up for the people that you
Yep.
were going to be there for, carry their snacks, make sure you got some makeup wipes and you're ready to help them when they mess up their tan. Be there, be a part of it. If you were going to run and now you don't know if you're going to be able to, go work the race. You can
Yep.
stand there and hand water out to other people and you can
Or just cheer them on.
yeah, or just show
Because
up.
that is so needed.
Yeah, exactly. But don't bring a cowbell. Oh my God, who came up with that idea? They're the worst. I run so fast through sections with cowbells because nothing like instantly
Which
gets
marathon are you doing?
the Colfax in Denver.
Oh, okay. Very
The
cool.
first 16 miles are uphill.
Have you done Pikes Peak?
No, but I drove to the top of it for the first
Oh.
time ever. Actually, that was on my stories because I spent the entire drive on the floorboards of my SUV trying not to throw up and pretend I wasn't terrified in front of my children because it was a snowy day, so you couldn't see anything around the mountain.
Oh,
And
I remember this on your story.
yeah, and then the roads froze, and then like we slid, and it was terrible, but we did
that
it.
would
Got to the top. Apparently you can run it, which seems like a horrific idea that I'll have to do at some time. You've done it?
twice. I loved it.
I
It's
love being
actually
crazy.
it's not as hard as, but the ascent is equivalent to like doing a marathon.
Yeah, I want to do. Have you heard of the Boulder?
Yes. I was going to ask if you've done that too.
Yeah.
I mean, we are just neighbor states, all three of us, kind
Yeah.
of. Oklahoma like separates me
We
and
can all
Jessica.
drive to each other. It
But,
wouldn't be a bad
yeah.
drive at all.
Because I'm in Kansas, you're in Colorado.
Right,
I was gonna say,
right.
I'm not close to Colorado.
You're not. Well, you're in Houston.
Yeah.
My mom, actually, funny with this, my mom and sister drove up from 2 different cities in Texas, and I drove from Denver to Oklahoma like 2 weeks ago, and then we all met up. So it's not too bad. It's like a 9-hour drive. But yeah,
So you
like
should do that race.
I am looking at, I want to do the one where you run with a burro too, because that seems fun.
Yeah.
You have to like run with a donkey. So yeah, find other ways to stay a part of what it is that you love and learn more there. Look at how many people do we know that have stopped competing for whatever reason and now they want to judge and like they're working on that side of things.
Yeah.
Dig in, like make it work for you, because the thing is, whether you pout about it or not is not going to change it.
Nope,
And it's not
life
going to
is
make
still
you a
gonna go on.
factor. So you're either going to come out being like, hell yeah, I did this instead and it can't stop me. Or you're going to have, sad toes and a sad mind. And we don't want that. We want happy people. So
Yes. And happy feet.
exactly. And happy. Oh, that's a cute movie. I should go show that to the toddler. Little dancing penguins. Made me think of it. You guys got anything for us to close out? Oh, I do.
Oh,
just remembered something.
Hey, Christina does.
Yes,
Christina.
sorry. I just remembered. So today is the first day I get to talk about it because it got finalized like 45 minutes before we started recording. But we have a new sponsor for the podcast. And the best part is we like super lucked out that we already had people like obsessed with the products. And so,
AKA me.
AKA Jess.
AKA
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. So we are now sponsored by Cured Nutrition. They have hopped on with us. We already have a ton of our coaches and clients and everybody who love the products. And so I've been, was it the sleep caps? And then what are the little gummy things?
Serenity gummies.
Serenity. Yes.
I love the name. I used to be obsessed with Cured's,
Nope, we lost Christina's voice.
now can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh my God. I don't know what has just happened, but somehow you guys are hooked up to my husband. Fantastic time if anyone can hear me for me to end the podcast, because this has never happened before, but my computer screen is currently wigging out telling me about AirPods. So Cured Nutrition all of my apologies that I'm ruining this announcement, but we're going to start having some more information about there. And if you guys have any questions, we've dug pretty deep into making sure that we know, like, we didn't choose partners that we weren't very, very excited to talk about, and that we don't, like, we hold them to the same standard as we do with our coaching and Core Nutritionals with their products. And so I think it's a match made in heaven. We do have a discount code over there now. And so it's just THECODE, all one word, over at Cured. And we are going to be diving more into like the different products and talking about things specifically. But if you guys have any questions for us, please reach out. Right now, Jess is our resident expert on our side of the podcast. And then over on the other days that everyone records, Lexi has been working with them for quite some time as well. So she knows like in depth a lot of stuff, but we're all going to get caught up. So I'm super excited. That's the only thing I have.